You've fallen for me, haven't you?
Oh, wait, no. Since when did I need your permission to do that?
You've fallen for me, haven't you? Since when did I need your permission to do that? It was raining. Hard. At the far end of a Hannam-dong alley, the iron gate slammed shut, and almost at the exact same moment, the two of them collided. Adela's equipment box went down first. Junho's umbrella turned inside out. Thunder cracked twice directly overhead, like the sky had an opinion about it. It wasn't until the words were already out of her mouth that Adela realized she'd answered in Korean. Not Italian, not English. The sharpest blade in her drawer. The stranger pushed his soaking hair back from his forehead and smiled. It was, she had to admit, a deeply irritating smile. We need to go back. 3 hours earlier. Adela Rossi was in the basement storage of a high-end private villa in Hannam-dong, dragging out the last box of props. 28 years old. Nigerian, Italian, and Seoul, all of it packed into one body, one pair of hands that knew how to read a room the way other people read faces. 3 months? That's what she'd poured into this one villa on the Hannam Hill. The angle of the light through the south window, the weight of the fabric against the raw concrete, the way a space breathes when you stop trying to force it. Every last bit of it had come from inside Adela's head. And then that afternoon, Kang Jaewon's assistant had held up a tablet screen. On it, the launch presentation for Kang Jaewon's new interior design brand. Adela's 3 months of work, her concept, her vision, her fingerprints on every surface sitting right there under his name. Neat as you please. Keep it together. Don't scream. You do not fall apart in this man's house. Kang Jaewon was on the living room sofa with his legs crossed, coffee cup in hand. 43? A name that moved real estate markets in this city. He didn't even put the cup down when Adela walked in. Good work. As of today, your contract is terminated. 3 languages rose in Adela's throat at once. She swallowed all of them. Instead, she stared at the hairline crack running across the saucer under his coffee cup, a brown stain blooming through it, slow and spreading. For some reason, she couldn't look away. It looked like her last 3 months, she thought. Right there on that saucer. She was out the door 20 minutes later. 2 equipment cases, 1 fabric sample bag. That was the full inventory of what Adela Rossi was leaving Hannam-dong with tonight. The iron gate locked behind her with a sound like punctuation. That's when a cab pulled up at the far end of the alley. The door opened and a man stepped out. 1 rolling suitcase, 1 leather briefcase. The kind of guy who smelled like a connecting flight from JFK. The distance between them closed in under 5 seconds. It closed fast. The equipment case went over. The umbrella flipped. Thunder. Are you okay? The box or me? Both, actually. Later, Adela would say that when she first looked at his eyes, she thought of the Han River. She couldn't explain why. Just that there was something in them, deep, and a little cold, and very still. Junho picked up the case. Adela took it back like she was reclaiming evidence. They stood there for a moment, both of them facing the same direction toward the iron gate of Kang Jaewon's villa. You're not going back in there, are you? I just came out. Just came out. He repeated it to himself. Checking something. Confirming something. Adela caught the expression and filed it away. She'd spent years reading rooms. And somewhere along the line, she'd started reading people the same way, whether she meant to or not. Thunder for the 3rd time. The rain thickened. And still, both of them stood under that narrow overhang, each with their own reasons, each unable to be the first to leave. The next morning, Adela had 3 texts waiting. Rent reminder. Credit card past due. Unknown number. In that order, like a ranked list of problems. The 3rd one was short. Did the equipment box make it home okay? Lee Junho. She stared at it. Then she put the phone face down on the counter and started making coffee. How does this man have my number? She didn't text back. Her place in Itaewon was a semi-basement unit low ceiling, windows that only showed feet going by on the sidewalk above. But inside, every inch of it was arranged in a way you wouldn't see anywhere else. A person who knows how to read space can't help but do something about the one they live in. It's a compulsion, really. Junho showed up at 10 in the morning. No buzzer. He was just there at the bottom of the stairs when she opened the door. Same leather briefcase. Different shirt. Same eyes. 12 buildings. All owned by Kang Jaewon, all in Hannam-dong. I need them staged. I'll double your previous rate. No. Can I ask why? I don't work on anything connected to Kang Jaewon. He nodded. like he'd been expecting that. Then, he reached into the briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Last night, Kang Jaewon retained a legal team. They're filing for an injunction on your entire portfolio. Intellectual property grounds. Adela's coffee cup shifted in her hand. Just slightly. Just once. If my portfolio gets frozen, I have nothing. I am nothing. 3 seconds. That's all it took. Adela wasn't the kind of person who hesitated long. She was the other kind. The kind who actually speeds up when the wall appears in front of her. I have conditions. My concept rights go in the contract, in writing. No contact with Kang Jaewon's side. I deal with you only. And I pick the 12th building. Junho looked at her for a moment. Morning light was coming in sideways off the stairwell, catching her profile. He uncapped his pen. Done. That afternoon, they started walking the alleys of Hannam-dong together. Junho with his documents. Adela with her notepad, reading the same buildings in 2 completely different languages. His numbers and yield projections. Hers light, texture, the way air moved through a doorway. First building, second building, third. Adela's eye was quick, and it was ruthless. Junho stopped walking twice, both times, because she'd identified a problem before either of them had even opened the door. How did you know about the moisture in that wall? Smell? And look at the paint on that corner, 2 coats, 2 different eras. Someone painted over something they didn't want people to see. He wrote it down. She didn't check whether he did. She just kept walking. That was enough, apparently. Past the 6th building, the hill crested and opened up to a view of the Han River, and that's where Junho stopped. At the end of the path, there was a house. Old red brick? Not on the list. That one's not in the lineup. I know. He said it and didn't move. The brick wall was covered in dried-out trumpet creeper vines, clinging there like they'd forgotten how to let go. Rusted mailbox. Padlock on the iron gate. Where a nameplate used to be, there were just 2 nail holes and a ghost of discoloration. I know this house. I've always known this house. I just don't know why. Neither of them spoke for a while. A wind came up from the river. The dry trumpet creeper scraped against the iron gate, a small, sharp sound, like an old house recognizing someone it used to know. On the way back down the hill, Junho spoke first. Have you lived in Seoul long? I was born here. You? It's been a long time. In a different sense. Adela didn't push it. A person who reads space learns to read silence too, and Junho's silence had a door in it, still closed. She left it alone. They parted ways at the convenience store at the bottom of the hill. Adela turned first. She'd taken maybe 3 steps when he called after her. Ms. Rossi. That's not Ms. Kang, just so you know. I know. That's why. Adela didn't turn around. She smiled to herself alone, right at the bend where the alley curved out of sight. 11 buildings down. 3 weeks gone. Every space Adela touched came out looking like a different hour of the day. One felt like early morning, another like that. Particular 4 o'clock light in late October. Junho logged the changes in numbers. Adela didn't care that he did. Somewhere in those 3 weeks, a rhythm had formed between them. Mornings on site, afternoons on paperwork, evenings at the convenience store. Nobody had discussed this. It just happened, and then it kept happening. He never questioned her choices. She never complained about his scheduling. The silences that had once been careful were starting, without either of them noticing, to become comfortable. The 12th building was Adela's call. Per the contract. She chose one tucked into the alley, right beside the red brick house, gray concrete exterior, old wood window frames, 2 stories, narrow. This one, any particular reason? At 4 o'clock, the light comes through the 2nd floor window and travels all the way down to the 1st floor. That angle doesn't exist anywhere else on this block. Junho looked up at the building. Adela was already walking inside. He glanced once toward the red brick house just once, just briefly, and then followed her in. 5 days to stage it. Adela developed a habit every afternoon at 4. She stopped whatever she was doing and stood at the 2nd floor window. Just stood there, measuring the light with her eyes. Junho started showing up at 4 with 2 cups of coffee. Neither of them commented on this arrangement. What are you going to do when this is done? Find the next job. You know, whatever. Outside of Hannam-dong? Outside of Hannam-dong. Right. Like that's a place that exists for me. She answered him by drinking her coffee. Through the window, the roof of the red brick house was visible. The dead trumpet creeper moved in the afternoon breeze barely, just enough to remind you it was still there. Completion came 2 days after that. The moment Adela set the last prop in its place, the 4 o'clock light dropped exactly to the first floor boards. She stood in it for a second, didn't say anything. That's it. That's it. 2 words each. But in that room, with that light, they landed like something longer. Junho put out his hand first. A handshake. Clearly a handshake. Except, while Adela's hand was in his, the afternoon light moved slowly across the floor beneath them. Neither one of them pulled away. The text came at 11 that night. Unknown number, but Adela knew before she even opened it. Kang Jaewon's side. One attachment. An internal planning document under Lee Junho's name. The title was clean and simple, Hannam-dong Asset Value Maximization Project. Adela's name was in it, under a heading that roughly translated to tools. Deploy stager Adela Rossi, leverage space value increase, then liquidate full portfolio. The phone screen went dark. Adela sat in the dark for a long time after that. Her hands had gone cold without her noticing. The next morning, she was waiting for him in the alley. No coffee, no notepad, just standing there. When Junho appeared at the top of the alley, she took 2 steps toward him. Used? No, I wasn't used. I made a choice my choice, with my own 2 feet. Junho stopped walking. Adela kept going. 12 buildings done. Every single one, just like the contract said. Now what the hell is that planning document, Junho? That's... If you can explain it right now. Right here in this alley. Morning light slanted into the alley at a low angle. Junho opened his mouth and then closed it. Adela didn't look away. Her eyes had fury in them, and underneath the fury, something else entirely. Junho saw it. That's exactly why the words wouldn't come. Adela knew too. She already knew she'd gone and trusted this man, and that terrified her more than anything he could have done. Now, if you're watching this and thinking Adela's anger makes complete sense, you're right, it does. 3 months stolen, 3 weeks possibly played. But look a little closer. What's happening in this alley isn't just a betrayal. It's a woman drawing a line in the dirt against the whole system that thought it could use her talent as a line item. The real question hanging in the air right now is Junho the architect of that system? Or is he another person it chewed up? That's the question this story is quietly daring you to answer. Junho didn't run. Whatever else Adela could say about the man, she'd give him that much. He put his back against the alley wall, not defensive. Exactly. More like someone settling in for something they've been bracing for a long time, and he started talking. That planning document was built by Kang Jaewon. My signature's on it, I won't deny that. But I didn't write a single word of it. Can you prove that? Not right now. But the reason I came to Seoul, the actual reason, it has nothing to do with that document. I need you to hear it first. Adela crossed her arms. Not a yes, not a no. Junho took it as permission, because that was all he was going to get. The story went back 15 years. Junho's father had run a small architectural design firm right here in Hannam-dong, the red brick house with the Han River view that had been his family's home. My father took on a design contract with Kang Jaewon. Payment in building equity instead of cash. There was a clause buried in the contract. His voice dropped. The shadow of the trumpet creeper on the wall above them fell across his face as he spoke. The final payment deadline had been moved up by 1 day. On purpose. My father didn't know. Kang Jaewon did. The day my father missed that deadline, the house became Kang Jaewon's. Adela uncrossed her arms. She didn't realize she'd done it until it was already done. So you flew here from New York to get that house back? I came to dismantle every asset Kang Jaewon owns. The house, I just wanted to see it one more time. One more time. That phrase caught on something inside her. Like a nail sticking up from a floorboard, small, precise, unavoidable. She turned toward the red brick house without quite deciding to. Rusted gate. 2 nail holes where the nameplate used to be. I've been looking at that house my whole life. Since I was little. I never knew why. You never knew why? Their eyes met. And right then, from somewhere down the alley, came the sound of footsteps. Kang Jaewon, not alone, a man on each side of him. A woman behind who had lawyer written all over her. He looked back and forth between the 2 of them and smiled the kind of smile that has nothing friendly in it. This works out nicely. Both of you right here. If you have something to say it through counsel. What I have to say, counsel doesn't know about yet. Kang Jaewon pulled out a tablet. On the screen was a photograph of an old document. Adela squinted. A lease agreement by the look of it. The date 15 years ago. Just before Mr. Lee's father gave up that house. There was a tenant. Short stay. Unusual name. His eyes moved to Adela. Rossi. Chineke Rossi. The breath went out of Adela like air from a punctured tire. Chineke. Her mother's name. A woman who had traveled from Nigeria through Italy to Seoul, who had arrived in this city holding a newborn Adela, and whose very first home in this country had been that house. Mom lived there. Mom lived in that house. The first tenant in that house was your mother. I'm finding this out right now, same as you. Low voice. Steady. No give in it. Adela heard it the way she heard everything, the way a person who reads spaces learns to read voices too. There was no lie in it. Kang Jaewon watched them both, gauging how deep the blade had gone. 2 families. 1 house. Funny how that works, isn't it? So Mr. Lee, if you've been using this woman to come after my assets, I can make sure every document connected to her mother comes to light. All of it. If that's what you want. The alley went quiet enough that you could hear the trumpet creeper scratching against the gate. Adela looked at Kang Jaewon. There was no anger on her face. What was there was colder than anger. He just put my mother's name on the table like a poker chip. Junho shifted half a step toward her. Whether it was to block or to stand beside Adela didn't sort it out. She just registered that he was there, that he'd moved. We'll stop here for today. I'll give you 2 days to think it over. He turned and walked back down the alley, his dress shoes sharp against the pavement. The trumpet creeper scraped the iron gate one more time. Adela listened to the sound and thought 2 days. That's more than enough. That night, Adela went back to her semi-basement in Itaewon and called her mother. Milan, Italy. 8 hours ahead. Chineke Rossi picked up on the 3rd ring. Mom, do you remember the red brick house in Hannam-dong? A pause on the other end of the line. Long enough to mean something. Then her mother's voice came through low, warm. The particular register of someone pulling something up from a place they don't visit often. Of course I remember. That's the house where you smiled for the first time. Adela closed her eyes. Low ceiling. Small window. The alley streetlight swaying outside, throwing shadows across the wall. Do you still have the lease agreement? For that house? Why? I need it. The original. The international package arrived in the pre-dawn hours of the 2nd day. Her mother had clearly been up all night inside the box. Alongside a worn envelope was a single handwritten note. Half Italian, half Korean, all her mother. The first floor your feet ever touched was there. Mom, the first floor my feet ever touched. Adela opened the envelope. Original lease agreement, 15 years old. Date, deposit amount, landlord's name, special provisions. And at the very bottom of the special provisions, written by hand in a different pen, the landlord's handwriting. Junho's father, the tenant of this agreement, retains the right to return to this home at any time. Adela contacted Junho an hour later. She named the place in front of the red brick house, where they had both, separately, always stopped. He was already there when she arrived. Standing at the iron gate, looking at the dried trumpet creeper on the wall, she held out the envelope. Read it. He took it slowly, opened it slowly. The pace of someone handling something that might not survive being handled carelessly. He read to the bottom, and then he didn't lift his head. Not for a long time. Dad wrote this. That's his handwriting. That's my father's handwriting. The morning sun hit the red brick and turned it the color of embers. Up on the wall, in the dried mass of trumpet creeper vines, one small new shoot. Red, no bigger than a thumbnail. Neither of them had noticed it until just now. The documents reached Kang Jaewon's side that afternoon. Junho's legal team had moved fast. The special provision in the original, Lease, evidence of the deliberately altered deadline 15 years ago, and Adela's intellectual property infringement case. All 3 at once, one swing. Raymond Kang, as of today, your Hannam-dong owes a debt to my mother. Adela said it in front of Kang Jaewon's attorney. Kang Jaewon himself wasn't there. Nobody could reach him. Somewhere in the alleys of Hannam-dong, his empire was beginning quietly, without fanfare to come apart. 15 years of careful construction, and it cracked on a single handwritten line. The kind of thing you can't unsee once you've seen it. Some debts, it turns out, don't care how long you've been avoiding them. By evening, they were inside the red brick house. Junho had a key his father had left it with him, though he'd never said why. The door hadn't been opened in 15 years. The hinges made a low, resigned sound. Empty. Dust on everything. Old wooden floor. A window facing the Han River, the glass hazy, but the light still getting through anyway. Because light is stubborn like that. Adela watched where it landed on the floor. Same angle as the 12 o'clock building. Same angle as the window she'd chosen on purpose, without knowing why she was choosing it. I picked that light because I remembered this light. I've been remembering this place my whole life without knowing it. Junho stood at the window looking at the river. Adela stood next to him. No one spoke. There was nothing that needed saying. Thank you. Me too, Junho cried. No sound. Just his face, doing what faces do when 15 years of held breath finally gets released. Adela looked at the river. Kept looking at the river. It was the kindest thing she could think to do. The red brick house in Hannam-dong found its way back. It took 15 years to do it. But what came back wasn't just a house. It was the people who had carried it with them, and the warmth it had held for them once, before everything went wrong. Some losses, it turns out, are just things waiting to be found again. This old house had been waiting the whole time. What is it that this story is really trying to tell us? Talent can be stolen, but the person who holds it cannot. The reason Adela didn't break after 3 months of theft and 3 weeks of doubt wasn't because she was tough, though she was. It was because what lived in her hands couldn't be transferred into anyone else's contract, no matter how cleverly it was worded. Junho traveled 15 years' worth of distance, not to reclaim a building, but to find what his father had placed inside it, the belief that the people who belong to a place will always have the right to return. And Kang Jaewon, who kept his empire together through manipulation and fine print, he didn't fall because someone outlawyered him. He fell because a single line of handwriting, written in good faith, by a man who trusted too easily, turned out to be stronger than everything built on top of it. Take from that what you will, but the old houses know what's pressed down long enough always finds its way back up, same as new growth through dry vine. This story is a work of fiction,